Over in the world of Marvel Comics, the X-Men's life has been interrupted thanks to the machinations of Nathaniel Essex, also known as Mr. Sinister. Sinister has been on the X-Men's governing body known as the Quiet Council, and in the background of several X-Men series, he's been utilizing the X-Men's mutant resurrection protocols, inserting his own DNA to cause the X-Men to fall under his influence. And to make matters worse, Essex has also been utilizing Moira McTaggart's mutant ability to reset his own timeline. My name is Oracle Brannock, and today let's go ahead and dive into the finale of Sins of Sinister with Sins of Sinister Dominion #1 over from Marvel Comics. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our content. And I want to go ahead and kick things off by sharing the creative team behind Sins of Sinister Dominion #1. This issue is written by Kieron Gillen, featuring gorgeous art from both Paco, Medina, and Werneck. We have colors on the issue over from Bryan Valenza and letters over from VC's Clayton Cowles. Plus, we have design coming in from Tom Muller and Bowen. The cover is illustrated by Leinil and Jesus Aburtov. Want to go ahead and share some context behind Sins of Sinister with Marvel Comics solicitation text for the issue. 7 trillion deadly sins. 1,000 years of hell and damnation comes to an end with the loudest scream in history. And for the truly guilty, there is no escape. Can the future change the present, or will we just make all the same mistakes again? Either way, the present will have to live with the future's sins. So here is one more look over at the cover for Sins of Sinister Dominion #1, coming in over from Leinil and Jesus Aburtov. I want to give a big thanks over to Adventures in Poor Taste for posting this preview of the issue so incredibly quickly, and let's go ahead and jump right into it today. So first off, really enjoyed some of the artwork in the issue between both Paco Medina and Werneck. I think these are two of some of the strongest artists that have contributed over to Sins of Sinister. The way that both Paco Medina and Werneck can adapt their nimble pencils to the just odd and strange script over for Kieron Gillen in the issue is truly kind of a marvel to behold in this tale. I really like the kind of opening of the tale as we're now so far into Nathaniel Essex's mutant sinister timeline that it just feels so twisted right now. And there's a big battle that breaks out over between Nathaniel and Ironfire in the issue that is just absolutely kind of heartbreaking to read. At this point in the Sins of Sinister timeline, so many of the mutants are now sort of taken off the board. So seeing kind of who's left standing in this issue and watching how some of the pieces fall over the course of the tale is really, really fascinating. And I really think that the artwork does a great job depicting some of the kind of brutal and harsh realities of the miniseries as well, over from artist Paco Medina in the issue. Also, I really appreciated the kind of battle between Mr. Sinister, Moira McTaggart, and the rest of the forces that are still standing over in the Marvel Universe. But I would say in terms of this issue, the biggest thing that I was waiting for was a kind of return over to the business as usual aspects of immortalxmen. I was fascinated to see if some of these Sins of Sinister elements were going to spill back into that book and enrich it a little bit more. Thankfully, I got exactly what I wanted here. There's a climactic moment that makes, essentially the X-Men timeline return over to the pages of immortalxmen. And when that sort of, timeline shift happens, it's absolutely fascinating from an artwork and writing perspective. We get that really kind of expressive Mr. Sinister over in the story, and watching how kind of Mr. Sinister reacts to the X-Men in a post Sins of Sinister reality is really fascinating. Love how kind of Rasputin was utilized in this issue too. Rasputin has been in some of the marketing materials for Sins of Sinister. So I think kind of making sure that she had a great moment in this issue was fascinating as well. One of the things that I really enjoyed about all of these Sins of Sinister titles is that they've had some similar characteristics between issues. One example is there's always a sort of tease at the idea of dominion across the vast majority of these Sins of Sinister issues. And this one has such a fascinating tease at the dominion concept that I think is going to be explored over in the pages of future X-Men stories. Very excited to go ahead and see how that shakes out in the near future. One other characteristic that's held firm between all of these Sins of Sinister issues has also been the inclusion on Mother Righteous, and specifically with her character. Mother Righteous has my absolute favorite scene in the issue towards the kind of second half of the comic book. Some of the interactions between her and the rest of the cast were so chilling and elicited such a strong emotional reaction from me. I was really happy that I felt so many emotions here at the end of Sins of Sinister, despite the fact that, you know, for the most part, there's just essentially a continuity reset here, but it's done in such a thrilling and fascinating way. At the end of the day here, I think one of the things I was really looking for this event to do is to just make the X-Men line as a whole seem more interesting. And I think the publisher has definitely accomplished that. I'm very excited to kind of go back into all of the rest of these miniseries that got us here. I'm definitely excited to follow Nightcrawler over in that Sons of X issue. Very excited for Storm in immortalxmen and X-Men Red. And I think that kind of all the writers across Sins of Sinister have utilized, some plot elements that I think are going to make upcoming issues of all of their series really fascinating, really interesting to read here. Also, some of the artwork in the issue from Lucas Werneck is just gorgeous in the tale. The last couple of pages in the issue particularly are just so harrowing and interesting to read. One of the things that I also really appreciate about Sins of Sinister is the fact that the X-Men, don't really have the greatest memory of what happened throughout this story. So a lot of these kind of, really small references and future issues are going to be left up to readers in the know here. But overall, so excited about all of the plot threads and the various kind of future implications that all these books are going to have on future X-Men stories. I think the writing across this issue was just magnificent to read. So much of the dialogue here was written so well from Sins of Sinister, and especially with Mother Righteous too. The way that she kind of phrased some of her, sentences were just so intriguing and captivating to read over in this issue. So it's hard for me to call Sins of Sinister here anything but a huge success over for the X-Men line of titles. There was just so much intrigue and horror that the X-Men were able to mine out of this alternate reality. And Nathaniel Essex, watching him kind of squirm throughout this series has been a just joyous and fun adventure throughout this book. Getting the tease of Dominion across these series were wonderful. And also, I really have to hand it to Sins of Sinister for showing readers just how interesting Mother Righteous is as a character in the X-Men line of titles. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming to check out our latest X-Men video. You can definitely expect me to come back to cover everything Fall of X in the weeks and months to come. We'll be continuing to explore what the pages of a post Sins of Sinister, immortalxmen, and X-Men Red look like. And we're going to go ahead and venture into the halls of Iron Man to see where else the plot threads of Fall of X are spilling into next. I want to know from you, what were some of your favorite moments from Sins of Sinister? Did you enjoy this crossover as much as I did? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for coming to check out the video, and we'll be back really soon for more excellent comic book content. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.